Hey everyone, you're watching the From WordPress to Statamic YouTube channel. My name is Michael. Today I want to talk about something that you've probably encountered in many of your website projects, which is that you need to update media, but it's being used in multiple places across your website. Well, how do you do that? Let's take a look at both WordPress and Statamic to see how we can accomplish this. So I'm going to start with WordPress here, and you can see I've got my people, and my headshots are slightly inconsistent. Maybe this guy, I don't want to have him like from above. I want to just replace it with a front kind of portrait. But I'm using him for this person post type. And if I was to click into his page, I'm using the photo there. I've also got this sample page where it's not actually referencing the photo tied to that content entry. It's just a static image being used on its own, but it's the same image. Now, if I want to replace them across the site, I can't do that out of the box. I have to install a plugin. So I'm going to go over to the plugins here, and you can see I've got this one called Enable Media Replace. So if I activate that, and then I navigate over to my media library here, you can see I've got this one called Man Portrait Above. And now it gives me this new option here called Replace Media. And here I can just click here to upload a new image that will replace this. Now, as you can see, I have a couple of options here. I can just replace the file and it'll preserve the file name. Or I can select this one and I can update the file, use the new file name, and it'll make sure all the references are updated behind the scenes in the database. For now, I'm just going to replace the file. Sometimes it's good to preserve the file name, because what if, say, you've sent out a newsletter and you have a link to something in your assets? Well, that link is going to break if you change the file name. So in this case, all I want to do is change the actual file that's being referenced, but the file name is going to stay the same. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to scroll down to the new image that I want, professional portrait. There we go. This is a straight on shot. So there's my new one, and I'm going to upload that. Okay, now my media has been replaced. And if I go back to the front end, I'm going to refresh. And there it is. There's my new image. If I was to right click and inspect, we can see that the file name is still talking about Man's Portrait Above. This is the original file name. It's just been replaced with the new image. And if I go over to my people, you can see there it's been updated there. And if I click into the actual single page for this, it's been updated there as well. So it doesn't depend on just updating the image for the entry. Everywhere that I'm using this is going to apply. So this is a nice plugin to have if you do have those circumstances where you need to update something, but you don't want links to break. Okay, let's turn to Statamic now and see how we can accomplish exactly the same thing. I'm going to go over to this tab where I've got my Statamic project. And as you can see, I've got a list of people here. And again, Joe, we're using that top-down portrait. So if I click in there, we're using that same image here. And if I go to my About page, I've got my list of people here. But in this case, while it's using the same image, I'm not referencing the actual people collection this time. I'm just doing it manually, but making sure I'm using the same image. And just how that looks like, you can see here, I've just added these images to this replicator field. So it's not tied to the actual entry. Now, if I were to go over to the assets and I wanted to replace this Man's Portrait Above, like we did with WordPress, all we need to do is click on Edit here. I don't need a plugin or an add-on or anything. The replace option is baked right in Statamic. So I can do the exact same thing where I'll upload a new file, and I'll find that portrait. Where is it? There it is. Okay, and I'm going to replace that asset. And so as you can see there, we've got that image replaced. And if I go back to my About page and give it a refresh, there's my new image. I didn't have to go in and change anything. And if I go over to the people where I'm using the same image inside of the entry, it's now been updated here. And my new image should appear here as well. This was so easy, I didn't have to install any add-ons or anything, and all the references are updated behind the scenes. Now, if you're paying attention closely, you probably notice if we go back here, the file name in this case did change. In most circumstances, this is probably fine, unless you encounter the situation that we discussed previously. So in that case, I want you to actually re-upload instead of replace. But you'll notice Statamic gives me this warning about browser or server level caching. So that's something to think about probably in both scenarios, right? If you're in WordPress using a caching plugin or something, you're going to encounter this issue as well. But we'll talk about the stash in Statamic in a different video. Keeping that in mind, I'm going to select my previous image and go back, and you'll see here that the file name is going to stay the same. So if I go to man portrait above and re-upload. So it said man's portrait above there as the file name, but we're still using the new file name from the previous one, professional man portrait. And I go back over here, give it a refresh, and there it is. So we're back to normal. Go back to my about page, and as the warning specified, I'm gonna have to do a hard refresh to see the new image, but there it is nonetheless. So as we can see with Statamic, this stuff is built right in. I don't need any extra add-ons or anything. Whereas with the WordPress option, I do need a plugin, but it's there for me if I need it. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you haven't already, join my newsletter. The link is in the description. Catch you next time.